there's a difference between confidence and knowledge. Confidence comes and goes. It depends on your mood, your circumstances, how much sleep you got. But knowledge, once you know something, you can't unknow it. You can't go back to the person who didn't know. The information has permanently altered how you see the world. That's what happens at $30,000. And it's not confidence. It's not a feeling. It's a permanent change in what you know about money, about yourself, and about how the world actually works. People who have never had $30,000 saved think about money one way. People who've crossed that threshold think about it in a fundamentally different way. And the change isn't temporary. It doesn't go away if the balance dips. It doesn't fade when things get tight. Once the shift happens, it's locked in forever. And the reason nobody talks about $30,000 specifically is because it's not a round, sexy number. It's not $25,000 and it's not $50,000. It sits in an overlooked no man's land. But it's the number where something clicks permanently. And I want to explain exactly what that click is and why it changes you at a structural level that nothing can undo. My name is Max, and I want to help you learn how to make your money work more for you in your life. This channel is about understanding the real, permanent shifts that happen at each stage of building wealth, the irreversible changes that compound even faster than money does. If you want to know what's coming and how to use it, subscribe, because we explore this every single week. So here's what most people believe about financial milestones. They think the benefit is the money, that having $30,000 is better than having $10,000 because you have more money to spend, invest, or protect yourself with. And that's true as far as it goes. But it misses the deeper shift, because the most valuable thing about reaching $30,000 isn't the $30,000 itself. It's the permanent knowledge you acquire about how money, compounding, and your own behavior actually work. Knowledge that you can only get by experiencing it firsthand. Reading about compound interest is education. Watching your own portfolio grow from $20,000 to $30,000 while you contributed $7,000 and the market contributed $3,000. That's experience. And experience creates a different kind of understanding, one that's visceral, embodied, permanent. You don't just believe compounding works. You've felt it. And once you've felt it, your relationship with every financial decision changes. Not because you're trying to be disciplined, but because you literally see money differently. Let me explain this with an analogy. Think about learning to ride a bicycle. Before you could ride, balance was a mystery. You'd watch other people do it, and it seemed impossible. 2 wheels, no support, somehow staying upright. And then you learned. And the moment you could ride, something happened in your brain that could never be reversed. Even if you don't ride for 20 years, the knowledge is still there. Your body remembers. The neural pathways were permanently formed. $30,000 is the financial equivalent of learning to ride a bicycle. Up until that point, you were learning to balance, saving a little, investing a little, figuring things out. But at $30,000, something clicks into place. You've experienced enough compounding, enough market volatility, enough payday discipline, and enough delayed gratification that the knowledge has moved from your conscious mind into your operating system. It's not something you think about anymore. It's something you are. And here's the key. Just like riding a bicycle, this change is permanent. Even if your balance drops to $15,000 tomorrow, a market crash, an emergency, whatever, the knowledge doesn't disappear. You still know how to build. You still know what compounding feels like. You still see money through the lens you developed at $30,000. The money can fluctuate. The knowledge can't. But here's where it gets really interesting. The permanent change at $30,000 happens across 3 specific dimensions, and understanding all 3 is what makes this milestone so powerful. Dimension 1, you permanently understand the gap between earning and building. Before $30,000, most people conflate these 2 things. They think earning money and building wealth are the same activity. They're not. Earning is income. Building is the gap between income and spending, directed into assets that grow, and the knowledge that these are 2 separate activities, that you can earn $80,000 and build nothing, or earn $50,000 and build steadily doesn't fully land until you've experienced both sides. By $30,000, you've lived through enough months of watching your contributions grow, watching your spending stay controlled, and watching the gap between income and expenses transform into a portfolio that the distinction becomes permanently clear. You stop thinking about your salary as the measure of your financial health. You start thinking about your savings rate, and that cognitive shift, once it happens, never reverses. It becomes the lens through which you evaluate every job, every raise, every spending decision for the rest of your life. Dimension 2, you permanently lose your fear of investing. Before $30,000, many people are terrified of the stock market. They've heard the stories, they've seen the crashes on the news, and their small, hard-earned savings feel too precious to expose to volatility. So they keep money in savings accounts, in cash, under metaphorical mattresses, safe from loss but also safe from growth. By $30,000, you've been invested long enough to have lived through at least one meaningful dip. Maybe the market dropped 10 or 15%. Your portfolio went from $25,000 to $21,000. You felt the panic. You considered selling, but you didn't. And a few months later, you were at $27,000 and then $30,000. And that experience, the lived experience of a dip followed by recovery, permanently rewires your relationship with market volatility. You don't lose all fear, but you lose the paralyzing kind. The kind that keeps money out of the market, the kind that makes people sell at the bottom. You've been through the fire and you survived, and that survival creates a permanent emotional tolerance that no amount of financial education can replicate. Books can tell you markets recover. Only experience can make you believe it. There's actually a name for this in psychology. It's called stress inoculation, the idea that controlled exposure to a stressor builds permanent resilience against that stressor. Soldiers go through it in training. First responders go through it in simulation. And you went through it accidentally, naturally. By having money in the market during a downturn and watching it come back, your brain processed the experience, filed it under survivable, and permanently reduced the anxiety response associated with market volatility. That inoculation doesn't expire, it's structural. And it means every future dip, even bigger ones, will trigger a calmer, more rational response than it would have before you hit $30,000. Dimension 3, you permanently understand the relationship between time and money. Before $30,000, time feels like the enemy. Every month that passes without dramatic progress feels wasted. You're impatient. You want results now. You compare your portfolio to people 10 years ahead of you and feel defeated. But somewhere around $30,000, a shift happens. You look at your portfolio and you notice that the returns from the last 12 months are meaningful, maybe $2,000 to $2,400 at 8%. That's real money that appeared without any effort from you. And you realize, for the first time with emotional certainty, that time is not your enemy. Time is your greatest asset. Every year that passes makes your money work harder, and the patience you've been forcing yourself to practice transforms into genuine calm, because now you understand at a visceral level that the waiting is the strategy. That understanding that time is your ally, not your adversary, is perhaps the most valuable permanent shift of all, because it affects not just your investing, but your career, your relationships, your entire approach to building anything worthwhile. You stop looking for shortcuts. You start trusting the process. And that trust, once established at $30,000, carries you effortlessly through $50,000, $100,000, and beyond. Now let me show you the math that makes this milestone even more exciting. Let's say you've been investing $550 a month at 8% average annual returns. You cross $30,000 at approximately month 44, about 3.5 years. During those 44 months, you contributed $24,200, and your investments added roughly $5,800. Compounding contributed about 19% of your total. Now here's the acceleration. from $30,000 to $50,000 takes about 28 months. During that stretch, your contributions are $15,400, and market returns contribute about $4,600. From $50,000 to $75,000 takes about 26 months. Contributions of $14,300. Returns of about $10,700. And from $75,000 to $100,000 takes roughly 22 months. Contributions of $12,100. Returns of approximately $12,900. Do you see what happened? At $100,000, market returns surpassed your contributions for the first time. The crossover happened, but the knowledge that the crossover was coming, you acquired that at $30,000 when you first felt the returns becoming meaningful. And that knowledge, the certainty that the math would eventually flip in your favor, is what kept you investing through the long, boring middle stretch where most people quit. Here's another way to see the acceleration. Each $25,000 chunk takes less time than the last. $0 to $25,000, about 38 months. $25,000 to $50,000, about 28 months. $50,000 to $75,000, about 22 months. $75,000 to $100,000, about 18 months. The compression is dramatic, and it's visible to you for the first time at $30,000 because you're far enough into the journey to see the curve bending. Before $30,000, the curve looked flat. After $30,000, you can see its shape. And seeing the shape, understanding viscerally that the future is faster than the past, is what makes the knowledge permanent. And this is the part most people miss. The permanent changes at $30,000 don't just affect your portfolio. They create what psychologists call durable psychological resources, internal assets that persist regardless of external circumstances. Financial self-efficacy, the belief that you can manage money effectively, solidifies at $30,000 because you have 3.5 years of evidence supporting it. Emotional regulation around money, the ability to make calm decisions under financial pressure, is established because you've survived market dips, unexpected expenses, and the constant temptation of lifestyle inflation. These resources don't deplete when you face setbacks. If anything, setbacks strengthen them, because every challenge you navigate with your $30,000 knowledge base confirms the skills you've built. You lose your job. You've been through financial uncertainty before. You know how to cut expenses, stretch savings, and rebuild. The market crashes 25%. You've seen dips. You know recovery comes. You stay calm. An emergency drains your savings. You've built from zero before. You know the path. You just walk it again. The person who has built to $30,000 and lost it is in a fundamentally different position than the person who never built at all, because the first person has permanent knowledge. The second has permanent uncertainty. You're probably wondering what this looks like in daily life. So here are some scenarios. You're shopping for a used car. Before $30,000, you looked at price tags. After $30,000, you look at total cost of ownership, insurance, maintenance, depreciation, opportunity cost. You calculate that the $18,000 car actually costs $26,000 over 5 years when you factor in everything, while the $12,000 car costs $18,000. You saved $8,000, and not because you're cheap, but because the lens you developed at $30,000 automatically factors in real cost. That lens is permanent. A coworker is stressed about a $1,500 dental bill. Before $30,000, that stress was yours too. After $30,000, you're empathetic but not frightened. You pay it, adjust your contributions for a month, and move on. The bill didn't disrupt your life, your sleep, or your investing momentum. That emotional resilience is permanent. Your industry shifts and your skills need updating. A certification costs $2,500 and 3 months of weekend study. Before $30,000, this felt impossible, too expensive, too risky. After $30,000, it's a strategic investment with quantifiable returns. You evaluate the ROI, fund it from savings, and increase your career trajectory. The ability to see education as investment rather than expense, permanent. And the career effects of these permanent changes compound powerfully. At $30,000, you have roughly 4 to 6 months of living expenses saved or invested. That's enough runway to be genuinely selective about your career, and the permanence of the knowledge means that even if your savings dip temporarily, your behavior doesn't revert. You still negotiate from confidence because you know you can rebuild. You still set boundaries because you know your worth isn't tied to one paycheck. You still take strategic risks because you've learned that calculated risk is the engine of growth. There's a concept in career psychology called career adaptability, your ability to navigate transitions, uncertainty, and change in your professional life. Research shows that financial security is one of the strongest predictors of career adaptability. And the permanent knowledge that you can build financial security, not just the current balance, makes you permanently more adaptable. You're not just secure right now. You're permanently capable of creating security. And that capability gives you career flexibility that most people never develop. Here's a specific example. 2 people get laid off on the same day. Person A has $30,000 saved and has the permanent knowledge of how to build wealth. Person B has $30,000 saved but received it as a gift. No building experience. 6 months later, Person A has navigated the job transition calmly, negotiated a 12% salary increase at the new role, and rebuilt their savings on schedule. Person B panicked, accepted the first offer at a 5% pay cut, and spent through most of their savings during the transition. Same starting balance, different knowledge. The permanent knowledge was worth roughly $17,000 in that single career event. The salary gap alone compounds into 6 figures over a decade. The flywheel spins. Permanent knowledge creates permanent confidence. Permanent confidence creates better career outcomes. Better outcomes create more resources. More resources deepen the knowledge. And because the knowledge is permanent, the flywheel never stops, even when circumstances temporarily slow it down. Now, I have to warn you about the one thing that can delay the permanent changes at $30,000. Reaching $30,000 too fast through a windfall, an inheritance, a bonus, without the gradual experience of building to it. Because the permanent changes I've described don't come from the number. They come from the journey. The 3.5 years of monthly discipline, market exposure, spending awareness, and delayed gratification. If you skip the journey, if $30,000 appears in your account without the experiential foundation, the permanent shifts don't happen. You get the money without the knowledge, and money without knowledge is temporary. This is why lottery winners and inheritance recipients so frequently end up back at their starting point. The money changed their balance, but not their brain. The experience of building, of contributing month after month, surviving dips, choosing investments over spending, is what creates the neural pathways that make the change permanent. The journey is the teacher. The $30,000 is the diploma. So if you're building to $30,000 right now, don't wish for shortcuts. Every boring month of contributing is laying a neural pathway. Every dip you survive is building emotional tolerance. Every temptation you resist is strengthening the discipline. The process isn't the price of the destination. The process is the destination. The money is just evidence that the process worked. And here's the specific warning for people at $30,000. Don't celebrate by spending from the principal. You've built something permanent inside yourself. Don't undermine the external evidence of that change by draining the account. If you want to celebrate, and you should, do it with money above the $30,000 floor, or do it with a meal, a moment, an experience that costs $100, not $5,000. Protect the number that proved the knowledge. So here's what I want you to carry with you. $30,000 isn't a milestone. It's a metamorphosis. The person who crosses $30,000 doesn't just have more money than the person who hasn't. They have a permanently different brain. One that sees real costs instead of sticker prices. One that feels time as an ally instead of an enemy. One that knows, not believes knows, that compounding works, that discipline compounds, and that they are personally capable of building wealth. And the most beautiful thing about this change is that it's yours forever. Not because the market will always go up, not because life will always be smooth, but because once you've learned to ride, you never forget. The knowledge lives in you. It shapes every decision and it compounds, not at 8%, but at a rate that no chart can capture. So keep building, keep contributing, keep surviving the boring months and the scary dips, because you're not just growing a number. You're becoming someone new, and that someone, they're permanent. $30,000 is where forever begins.